Okay. Where did you want to go with this?
Well, we were discussing all the things that secularism brings to the table.
So for me, secularism allows a system like liberal democracy where you can have multiple religious ideologies or otherwise philosophies intermingle and exist within the same system.
Oh, it was secularists who brought us that?
I'm not trying to convert you. I'm not trying to convert anybody else. I have found my own philosophy and sense of morality that works for me. And if you get that from Christianity, that's fine. That's good. That can exist in a secular structure.
Yeah, I know. But what if?
Why I favor?
Wait a second.
I don't think it's because. Let me just real quick.
What happened?
Religion or another is going to be able to successfully convert everybody around them. It just doesn't work that way. There's no historical precedent to suggest that that's a sustainable system.
What's a sustainable system? You cut out for a second.
This idea that you should force through legislation or extreme coercion or violence, force people to adopt your religious framework. I favor a system where many religions can flourish and communities can benefit because of this flourishment, and secular democracy can do that.
Well, then let us go back to the roots of secular democracy. Was the secular democracy, which you just appealed to in the United States, brought to you by secularists or was it brought to you by Christians?
If you're talking about the founding fathers, many of them obviously believed in the Christian God.
Which ones didn't?
And it was a spectrum.
Name one that didn't.
Probably all of them. But there was a spectrum of belief at that time. You had people that practiced these orthodox versions of their religion. And then you had a spectrum go all the way to deism, which at the time was emerging as this way more popular philosophy. It was taught to the intellectuals at that time. It was booming in popularity. And so when we talk about like Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, these people believed in sort of an absentee landlord version of God. So even if they practiced
they believe in God?
Christian, yes.
Oh, well, that's so strange.
If people, I don't know why you're saying that's
because
strange.
You said that secularists brought this to us. Doesn't sound like secularists brought it to us.
You can have religion in a secular system. A secular system does not mean...
But that wasn't your claim. Your claim was that
it was.
Secularists brought us this system.
I don't think I ever said that.
You did. In fact, let me. I can tell you right back what you did say. You keep on freezing, bro. I don't know what's going on. But
you asked me what secularism does for me. I never told you that atheists, I never told you that atheists gave us secularism.
Okay,
you just mentioned straw man a moment ago.
No, that wasn't a straw man. You said the reason you embrace secularism is because it allows for enlightenment, egalitarian values. Very strange, because it was not secularists who brought enlightenment, egalitarian values, sir.
What does that matter?
Well, it matters because you're kind of trying to make the bold claim that Christianity itself is adversarial to these values. Now, it should be adversarial, but the Protestants here have not ever been traditionally adversarial. They were the ones who brought it.
Your version of Christianity, a theocratic state, something...
When have I ever asked for a theocratic state?
Maybe I misinterpreted. If you could tell me what your ideal form of governance would look like in relation to your religion, if you want to clarify, then I'm all ears.
Yeah, it would be a synergistic relationship between the church and the state. Like, for instance, are you aware that in England they have a Church of England?
Yes.
Okay, are you aware that at our founding, that all of our colonies, all of them, post-founding, still had a state religion?
Yes.
Okay, great. Do you know why that was the case?
Explain.
It's because secularists have no moral authority or autonomy. They have a do as thou wilt harm principle. So they can't really make ought claims. They don't make any sense. You say that secularists should be in charge. I say secularists should not be in charge because they have no moral or ethical epistemological foundation to make ought claims on anybody to do anything at any time, ever. They have a bizarre live and let live policy, which is really bad for governing a nation.
I did not say that secularists necessarily need to be in charge. I have no problem if a Christian is elected president of the United States, even though I don't practice Christianity.
As long as he does what?
so long as they serve the country in a way that lines up with my ideal version of governance.
Secular values.
It could be, but
Right.
it could be a Muslim. It could be a Christian.
As long
it
as
could
he
be
rules as a
Buddhist.
secularist, you don't care.
Sure, yes.
Now tell
But I'm
me
not
what's
saying that
actually immoral.
secularists
Now can you? Yeah,
necessarily
great.
need
Now,
to- yes.
yeah.
go
Now
ahead.
tell me what's actually immoral about the religious ruling from a religious prism and enacting law based around their religious values and not taking secularists into consideration at all.
I'm not making moral judgments about like what you would prefer. If you live in a Christian town and you guys democratically decide to pursue policies that line up with your
No, let's
Christian
say they didn't
ideology,
democratically do
then
it.
Fine. That's
What's
just
wrong
the
with
way it is.
what's wrong if they don't want to democratically do it? What if
Because
they
I prefer-
authoritarianly do it? What's your actual moral claim against that even?
Because my preference is
Oh,
democracy.
your
When we're talking- when
preference. So your moral claim is your
Isn't that
preference?
what this conversation is about?
No.
I thought this was going to be a conversation about what system you prefer versus what system I prefer.
And inside of a system of preferences, there should be some type of ought or justification for it outside of because I want that. I just want that.
Your
moral imperative is my preferences?
Who is strawman and who now? I didn't say that.
You said you
secularism
want
should-
it because of your
You-
preferences. That's it.
I did not say that I prefer secularism simply because I prefer it. I can give you reasons why I prefer secularism, and
Outside of your
I told
preferences,
you-
let's do it.
I told you that my preference is a system that allows for
Your
multiple
preference.
types of people. And when I look at America as a democratic experiment, I see success all over the country. It's not a perfect country. We could do better, but I see success all over the country. I think this is a really good system that we have here. This is a system that allows for people
Got
like
it.
you and me to exist and have the same
Now I need
right
you to
vote,
know.
for example.
I need you to note this, and you can go back right this second. You can rewind your own tape, and you can see it for yourself. You said in the span of 20 seconds, I did not say that my preferences are the thing which I am appealing to for why it is that I want this form of government. And then went on to say, but my preference is this form of government. So are you appealing to anything external to
No,
your
you
own?
said-
Stop. Are you appealing to anything external to your own preferences, or aren't you?
No, I would appeal to social utility and my idea of what would be good in service of that goal. I was pushing back against your take that I want secularism simply because I want
And
secularism.
why ought we follow social
I have
utility?
My reason. We ought follow social utility because I believe in pursuing a system
Because
that would
of
be
your
the best-
preferences, I believe.
that would be, in my opinion, the best outcome for individuals that exist within that system.
So that's your preferences
So
again.
I try to maximize good outcomes according to what I believe, as I
Your
assume you
preferences.
do.
Those are all your preferences, bro.
What are the differences between you and me? You have a preference.
I have
in terms of what
I have
your
epistolic.
system-
No, I have epistemic justification for knowledge. You do not have epistemic justification for knowledge. You can't justify how you even know a thing, let alone why we should govern with that thing. So as we move in to your preferences, my preferences, it's your preference that we follow your preference. That's your preference, right? But
It is, of course,
okay,
the case,
it's my preference that we don't follow
would
your
prefer things to be
preference,
this
and
way or
that's
that
my
way.
preference.
Great.
That's
the
what you
whole
want?
point of this. That's the whole.
So
point
then
of
how do
this
we make the
discussion.
determination as to who is right?
We would get into the minutia of why we think our systems are better than the other person's system.
Because of our preferences.
Exactly.
Well,
What
if
is-
it's
what
just
is your
because of our, if
issue?
there's no justification outside of what is preferable to the individual, it's my preference that I rule everybody. What's wrong with that?
That is your opinion. I disagree.
Well, wait a second. You can't disagree.
yes.
My preferences are just as valid as yours.
I'm not disagreeing that you have a preference.
Yeah, but
Agreeing
what
that
makes
your
it less
preference
valid
would be
than
the
yours?
best outcome for the people that live within this system.
What makes my preference less good than your preference?
When we're talking about something like affirming identities, we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about unaliving rates. We're talking about this thing called social stigma.
Yeah, what makes my
which I
preference
believe-
less viable than your
I'm
preference?
trying to give you an example. So in this specific case,
Mm-hmm.
that is an outcome that I don't like. I don't like seeing people
That's your preference again.
unalive themselves
Your preference again.
or experience something like deep depression because of social stigma.
Don't you
Because of this
understand
need to-
how ridiculous this is? Every time I
No.
ask you, why should we appeal to your preferences instead of mine for moral oughts? You say because it's my preference that you do so every single time. I believe you're saying my preference. Everything is my
I'm
preference,
trying-
my preference, my preference. Do you have anything that you can justify this on outside of you? Should all moral oughts come from Hutch's
brother.
brain and his preferences?
Brother, the justification that I'm giving you are things that exist outside of my experience. I'm not talking about my individual experience in this system. I'm talking about a system that most benefits everyone.
And is it, why should we follow a system that benefits everyone?
Because we all want good outcomes
No.
in accordance with our philosophical underpinnings.
So our preferences?
Yes.
Yeah, so then you're appealing to nothing more than your individual preferences. All of the world's morality and everything in it comes from Hutch's brain and his preferences. That's what's
I
moral
don't-
and immoral. Then give me a moral justification external your preferences and why we should follow them.
I believe that all morality is subjective. We don't derive it from, or I don't derive it from scripture. I derive it from my experience as a human being. And my philosophy, the one thing that I try to lead with is empathy. That's it. And this is something that I was taught when it came to scripture, when we learned about Jesus' teaching. The two main rules that he gave was love the God your Father and love your neighbor. So even though I don't subscribe to Christianity at this point in my life, I still gleaned valuable lessons from the teachings of Christ. And I carry those teachings.
But that's
to
all
this
subjective
day.
preference, right?
Yes.
So if it's all subjective preference and you can appeal to nothing outside of your own preference, Hutch's preference is the way the world ought to be because that's how he prefers it to be, then Andrew Wilson wants the world to be this way because I prefer it that way. Can you tell me why I'm wrong?
No, I don't think
No,
you're wrong.
I'm
think
not wrong.
Everybody has their own subjective take on what morality is.
So
You, for
my
example,
preference then is just
derive
as
your
valid as
sense of
yours.
Morality from scripture.
So then-
sure, it's valid. I'm not going to tell you it's invalid.
So if my preference
I'm
is
telling you
just
that
as
I
valid
don't
as yours,
agree.
then how can you not agree? You just said it's just as valid as yours. What's there to disagree with?
What can I not agree with?
How
what
can you disagree if
specifically
my
would you want me
preference
to
is if my preferences are just as valuable as yours? How in the fuck could you disagree with them?
When we're talking about this sort of thing, what I'm telling you is that I don't doubt that you believe that your moral system is correct. So in that sense, it's valid.
No, you're
I'm not
saying my
gonna
moral
try to
system
tell you-
is correct.
No.
Yes.
Not according to my
I'm sorry.
morality.
That's so weird. Yeah, I thought your preference was that all preferences are equal. Therefore, all moral systems are correct and equal.
No, I'm saying everybody has their own experience with these sorts of things.
Wait, what?
I'm
Hang
not
on.
gonna
I'm
tell
sorry.
you-
Are my preferences
I'm
valid
gonna
or
tell
not?
you, they're valid in the sense that if you tell me that this is what you believe, I'm going to believe you. That doesn't necessarily mean that I agree with what you are proposing
Yeah,
in terms of like
I don't.
ideal
So then
governance.
so then my preferences would be not as valid as yours, right?
No, I'm not
No?
saying that. No, everybody has their own perspective. It is not up to me to tell you or anybody else that it is invalid. Do you understand that?
No, I don't. Listen, that actually makes no sense. Here, I'll help you.
You want to live in a world where you can just tell me that this or this thing is invalid, and you'll probably
Here,
point
let
to
me
scripture
help you
and
out.
This sort of thing.
Let me help you out
sure,
with this so that you
sure,
understand.
sure.
There's Aztecs who are cutting out a man's heart on top of a pyramid, and they're going to kick his corpse down the steps based on their
Sure.
preferences.
Sure.
Are what they are doing immoral?
According to me,
According
yes.
to you and your
Yeah, and I'm
preference.
sure
hang
we
on.
agree.
Let's just
And I'm
walk
sure
through it
we
so I can show you
agree.
this so that you understand.
Yes.
According to your preferences, right?
Preferences is like one word, but sure, yeah, we can use that
So
word.
if it's immoral that they're doing this according to your preference, they ought
Yes.
not do it according to what you prefer, right?
They ought not do it because I don't think that snuffing out somebody's life before it's their time to die is a good thing.
Based
I want
on?
human beings. My philosophy
Your preference.
is that my philosophy is
Okay.
that to be a human being on this planet is to be given a tremendous gift to witness what we can witness here And because of that, I want everybody to experience the same thing that I've experienced when I go to like Yosemite, for example. And you can't do that if you sacrifice someone on an altar because it's an eclipse or something.
Is that because you would prefer that they don't?
Sure, yes.
Can you appeal to anything outside of your preference?
No, not really.
So then great. No. So then if they justify and say this is our preference and we appeal to nothing outside of our own preference, how could they possibly be wrong?
They're wrong according to me.
Yeah, but you're wrong. Point. Okay, I get it, but that doesn't actually make sense. Because unless you're saying that your preferences are the ultimate arbiter of all morality, then their preferences have to be just as valid as your own, sir.
When we use words like valid, I'm telling you,
you're not going to answer to it.
When we use words like valid, I'm not telling you that I think it's the correct thing to do. So if I say your experience with morality is valid, that's not the same thing as me saying I think that would be best for my community, the country that I live in, the state that I live in, etc.
Is that a subjective preference?
Is what a subjective preference?
That when you say X, that means Y.
Can you relate that back to what I just said?
Yeah, we'll relate it back to what you just said.
Yes.
Try to understand this. If
yes,
you make the claim that your preferences, the ones that you want to see all oughts derive from your preferences, that would mean you would be the ultimate authority and arbiter of what is moral and immoral. If you are to say that somebody... Stop, let me finish. Okay. If you are to say somebody else's preferences are just as valid as yours, that would be saying that they also are the ultimate arbiters of what is moral. So either one of you are wrong or both of you are wrong.
So I think where we're missing each other is I don't pretend to be the arbiter of morality, the ultimate arbiter of morality in this country, in my city, in the world. I don't expect that everybody follow what I believe in. I am not trying to foist that on everybody around me. You seem to think that that's what I am lobbying for.
That has nothing to do with what I just said. Let's assume for a second.
You just said a moment ago, you just called me the ultimate arbiter.
No, dude, this is just a logical extension of your position is what I'm trying to show you. Regardless of if you don't want to be the ultimate arbiter or you do want to be the ultimate arbiter, you believe that all morality stems from your own preferences, right?
Everybody has their own subjective experience with morality.
And are yours better than theirs?
No.
They're not, right? Then all morals are equal then.
I'm not saying that I don't think that there are certain philosophies of morality that I don't consider mine to be better than. I'm not saying that. But I'm not
which
saying
ones are better than yours?
But I'm not saying that I necessarily believe that I'm right about everything or that I should decide how a society should conduct themselves morally.
Oh, okay, got it. So then you're not going to make any ought claims ever again about how society should conduct itself morally, right?
No, I'm going to tell you my preference.
And should anybody ever follow your preference? Should anybody ever follow it?
My preference would be, for example, that people respect someone's like preferred pronouns. That's my preference.
Got it. Should people follow should people follow your preferences?
Of course, I would like to see that, but
they ought to do that.
I don't delude myself. Have that like same level of comfort. I can just simply tell you
I get it. I understand. I understand your position. Ought people follow your preferences?
Position
ought
that it is doing more harm to you.
Ought people follow? Ought people follow your preferences or not?
I would like to see people in this world live a life that is
still not answering the question. It's a yes or no question.
Empathy.
It's not even a loaded question. Ought people follow your preferences or not?
That would be my preference. Yes.
So yes, they should follow your preference, right? Should they follow your preference above everybody else's?
That's a personal decision that everybody has.
That's not my question. Ought they follow? You don't know if they should follow your preferences, but you just said they should.
I reject your premise because my goal is not to proselytize my personal sense of morality to the world.
You just got done saying people ought to follow it. What are you talking about?
But I don't go into it with the expectations that I can force that on everybody.
So
Do you
everybody
understand what I'm
ought to
saying?
follow your moral preferences, except everybody
Oh
who
my
shouldn't.
God, bro. I feel like we're getting very lost in the sauce. When it
We
comes to
are,
the
because I
language here.
keep on trying
And
to
I feel
explain
like
this
we're trying to
simple
communicate
concept.
Very different concepts to each other right now.
Do you know why
I
Rob
am not-
Noor told you to talk to me when it came to this stuff? This is why. Because he knew that you're a dumbass and you need to be educated on this. So that you understand, I'm going to try to help you out. This is why it's becoming a circle. It's a lot of fun to do to you, but you're caught in a logic trap, and you can't get your way out. I'm not going to let you out until you make the concession that you're the ultimate arbiter of all that is good.